Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Late Night Double Feature Picture Show. Today I'm starting a series I'm calling Retro Reviews, in which I take a look back at some of the films of yesteryear and revisit them and do some retro reviews. So for the first retro review, I've chosen, in my estimation, a true classic. Of course, I'm talking about Night of the Comet from 1984, running time of 95 minutes. Just a few things about the production and the cast. So the original budget for the film was um, $700,000, so less than $1 million to make this movie. And while it doesn't come across as a big budget feature, it does, it looks like the $700,000 is well spent. There's some decent effects in the film. Um, so $700,000 to make, and it did a box office of $14.4 million. So a nice return on the $700,000 that was invested. So a little bit about the cast. The film, the three stars of the film, the main characters, are played by Catherine Mary Stewart, Kelly Maroney, and Robert Beltran. Interestingly, Robert Beltran got top billing in this movie. Although, if you're familiar with the film in any way, shape, or form, this film clearly belongs to the two women leads. This is their movie. They play sisters, and their relationship is really lovingly rendered for a film of this kind. It's a horror, comedy, sci-fi film, but you get a real sense of the caring between these two sisters. Although there's some rivalry between them also. So this is very much their film, whereas Robert Beltran plays an important part in the movie. Why he got top billing, I'm not 100% sure. The film was written and directed by Tom Eberhardt. I believe it was his first effort as a director, maybe even his first effort at a screenplay. And there was discussion, I think, pre-production about the concept of taking what ultimately ended up being this horror sci-fi comedy and turning it into a straight horror film, which thankfully they didn't do. I think had this been made as a straight horror film, it would have just kind of disappeared into a sea of similar movies from that period of time. But they stuck with the script as it was written, which I think was a really good idea. Just two other points on cast. In smaller roles, Mary Warnoff of Eating Raoul fame, who she co-starred with Robert Beltran in. Robert Beltran was Raoul in Eating Raoul. And Jeffrey Lewis, who is the father of actress Juliette Lewis. They have some pivotal roles in the film, although smaller parts. So, having said that, let's jump a little bit into the plot of the movie. So, the film is called Night of the Comet, and indeed, at the beginning of the film, there's a little brief introductory, almost like narration, in which you see the solar system, and you hear that a comet that has not been anywhere near planet Earth since 60 million years ago, roughly the same time that the dinosaurs all disappeared off the face of the earth, is about to make a swing by Earth. And not only a swing by, um, but it's going to be so close to the Earth that the Earth will pass through the comet's tail. So the Earth will actually interact with the comet's tail. Thankfully, not the comet. That would have been worldwide destruction, right? So when we join the film, it's the evening that the comet is supposed to make its closest flyby, and of course, people all over the world are having Comet parties. You know, there are parties and barbecues and street fairs, and people are going to be outside and they want to be a part of this. They want to see the history of a comet that has not been back this way for 60 million years. Um, One of the sisters, played by Catherine Mary Stewart, uh, she works in a movie theater. She's having a relationship with the projectionist, and the projectionist has this little side business where he takes the films that are being shown and he kind of rents them out to people so that they can have their own viewings for like $100 a night. But the upshot is they have to get the film back to them by 6 a.m. the next day so that the film doesn't go missing and they can still show it at the movie theater. So he's got one of these scams going on this particular evening. He and Catherine Mary Stewart are going to be spending the night together in the projectionist booth, fooling around, doing what teenagers do. Um, so that's their plan. They're not going to actually be outside to see the comet. She complains about that a little bit, and he says, "Oh, you can watch it on TV." So they're going to spend the night in the projection booth together as lovers. Her sister, played by Kelly Maroney, is at home with somebody who is not her mother. It's her stepmother. So both Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney, their father in the film is a soldier. He's off in South America somewhere. They're at home with the stepmother, who is kind of portrayed as like a wicked stepmother. Um, and so when Catherine makes a phone call home to indicate some BS story about why she won't be home to see the comet that night, she's going with her science class to an observatory to watch for extra credit. She tries to get her sister Kelly Maroney to back her up, and this turns into a big confrontation between Kelly Maroney and the stepmother. They actually kind of shockingly exchange slaps. The mother slaps Kelly, Kelly slaps the mother back, and then the mother actually punches Kelly in the face. Um, so that's where we leave them. And basically, we're left with a shot of that night, the night of the comet, of her stepmother, their stepmother going outside. There's a street party. All the whole neighborhood's out there. And we're treated to like a low budget 1984 version. It almost looks like Tron special effects when you see the comet and the lights in the sky, kind of like a rosy pink color. It almost looks like Tron special effects. Um, and that's it. It cuts to the next morning, and Catherine Mary's character wakes up in the projection booth with her boyfriend, and it's the next day. And ultimately, the boyfriend realizes that this person who was supposed to bring his film back hasn't shown up. He leaves her there. He decides to go and find this guy, opens the back door of the movie theater and is attacked by basically what amounts to a zombie. Now, what we discover is that everybody who has been directly exposed to the fireworks of that evening, the comet the Earth passing through the tail of the comet, um, everybody who's directly exposed, there's some chemical reaction between the comet, the atmosphere, and the human body, and basically turns all human bodies into like calcium dust. So all the moisture is wicked away from the body, completely sucked out of the body. And basically, what you find in the streets are like piles of clothing with calcium dust in them. The zombies are people who were partially subjected to the comet. So they had some partial protection. So they haven't quite yet become um, uh, piles of dust. But for some reason now they hunger for human flesh. Not 100% sure why that would be the case. But so anyway, Catherine Mary Stewart's boyfriend falls prey to one of these zombies. She eventually gets out of the movie theater, realizes there's something really wrong. There's no cars on the streets of Los Angeles. She heads home. She finds everybody's clothes in the streets in this kind of rust-colored dust amongst the clothes. She runs into the house hoping to find her sister, played by Kelly Maroney, and while running through the house, she actually finds Kelly. So While the entire world almost has been turned to calcium dust, the two sisters have survived. And what we eventually discover is that the projection booth that Catherine Mary and her boyfriend were in was steel lined, and that offered them protection from the comet. Um, Kelly Maroney's character, after having the fight with the stepmother, spent the night in some structure that was because she didn't want to be anywhere near the woman. Spent the night in some structure that was made of steel, so she was protected. So as far as we know at this point, these are the only two living people, except for the zombies, in Los Angeles. Um, while they're trying to figure out what's going on, they hear a radio broadcast and they think, oh, there's a person. So they go and they get to the radio station and they realize that there's no real human there, that it's all tape recorded and mechanized, and the music that's being played and the voice that's going out over the airways has been recorded. But what they also discover in the radio station is another human being, and it's Robert Beltram's character. Um, he kind of has a better sense of what's going on, so he kind of has a gun on them, asks to see their eyes because I guess he's trying to determine whether they're still human or if they're zombies. Determines they're human and puts the gun down. So this kind of sets up now this human triangle, right? We have the two sisters at the end of the world. We have Robert Beltram's character at the end of the world, two girls, one guy, and you have a sense as the film goes on that there's always been a bit of a rivalry between the sisters for the attention of men. And right away, Catherine Mary Stewart's character hits it off with Robert Beltram's character, and of course, Kelly Maroney's character is like pissed off because she's like, "Great, one guy left in the world, and he's going for my older sister as usual." Right? She's always losing guys out to her older sister. The other characters I mentioned, Mary Warnoff and Jeffrey Lewis, they're part of a think tank. They had a sneaking suspicion that something was going on with this comet, so they had locked themselves in this facility and were prepared. So basically, at some point, Kelly Maroney's character turns off the tape recording and starts broadcasting over the radio. And gives the phone number for the radio station, and actually it's a call. We don't hear the interaction between Kelly and the caller, but ultimately, what she tells her sister and Robert Beltran's character is that that they were at some facility and they were going to come and help them, that that they had some safety for them and that kind of thing. So that's the basic setup of the film. You have these three young adults who are left alone in Los Angeles after this comet has devastated Los Angeles. And the idea is that this has occurred all over the world, not just Los Angeles. That people have either been reduced to dust or they've been turned into zombies. Um, what we find out is that the people who are from the think tank, they have evil intentions. They stupidly, even though they protected themselves in a structure, somebody left the venting system open, so they are slowly going to turn into these zombies and eventually turn to dust. So what they're looking for in survivors, and there are some other survivors besides the three that we follow in this film, two young children and some other folks, they're brought to this facility and they're basically being made to be brain dead, and that they're going to keep them kind of alive through machinery and use their blood to try and come up with something that'll save their own lives, the people at the think tank. And they have the same plans for the two sisters and Robert Beltran's character. So that's the basic plot. What I would say about the film aesthetic, and the thing that makes it so enjoyable is that while there is some zombie stuff going on, there's science fiction stuff going on. There's a couple of briefly bloody scenes that go on. The film also has a sense of humor. It's kind of Valley Girl meets a zombie movie. And because of that, it's kind of endearing. It has the elements of a California comedy Valley Girl type flick with the elements of a horror movie, which I think is what makes it unique and why, as I said earlier, I was happy that they didn't change it into a straight horror movie. We have a couple of scenes of of the sister at some point. Or Belgium's character goes to San Diego because he has to be sure that his mother and his sister didn't survive the comet. So he leaves Los Angeles to go to San Diego, and the sisters are left to their own devices for a while. And they have this great sequence of the two of them. They go shopping. They go to a department store in Los Angeles, obviously completely empty, and the sequence of them trying on clothes. And that's the other thing about this movie. I mean, everything that they're wearing in this film and all the clothes they try on during this sequence are so 1980s. If you had no idea when this movie was made, just from the visuals and the clothing and some of the language, you would have no doubt, easily know that it was the 1980s. So there's this great sequence of them, kind of doing the shopping. They don't have to pay for anything. They're trying clothes on. There's some good 80s music on the soundtrack, and so they have some music playing over the scene, and there's some great scenes of the two sisters dancing together joyfully, which is a great counterpart, right? Outside, the world has been devastated, right? People turn to dust, people turn to zombies, but these valley girls are happy in the fact that they're still alive, they're still together, they're able to do what valley girls love to do the most, which is go to malls and shop for clothing. And it's a really great sequence, kind of shows that. Now, one of the things I should say about the sisters is that if you remember earlier, I mentioned that their father is a soldier and was off in South America, which is why they were home with their stepmother. Um, he taught them to defend themselves. So there's a scene early in the film where Catherine Mary Stewart has to defend herself against a zombie, and she does that hand to hand. We also learn very quickly that they've been trained by their father in the use of firearms, including Mac 10s, which are like basically machine guns. Once they hook up with Robert Beltran's character, they arm themselves, now understanding that there are zombies in the world and whatnot. And so you know that they're not just the typical Valley girl who are out there looking to party and have fun, but they actually have some training and they're able to take care of themselves. So also, one of the things that's great about the movie is that filters were used. So, after the comet passes, anytime you get an outdoor shot of Los Angeles, the sky is this kind of pinkish rose color, fuchsia kind of colored. And it was obviously all done with filters, but a really low budget way for the filmmakers to be able to show, hey, something has occurred, and the remnants of that is still visible in the sky. So that's fun and interesting. I mentioned the soundtrack a little bit. Interesting 80s tunes, and even the scoring. It has a very 80s synth sound. The only song I really recognized was "Girls Just Want to Have Fun," but it wasn't the Cyndi Lauper version. It was somebody else performed it. Um, so overall, a very 80s aesthetic, the clothing and the language, the way that people talk. There are no cell phones. You can tell by there's not that many vehicles in the movie, but the vehicles that we do see don't look anything like, the cars that are around now. So eventually there's a confrontation between the girls and the think tank people. They arrive and supposedly do some blood work on the sisters. They One of the characters, the Mary Warnoff character, she realizes that she's not only dying from the exposure, but that it's accelerated. So she pretends that Kelly Maroney's character's blood work shows that she is infected, and stays behind in Los Angeles to wait for Robert Beltran's character to come back. They take Catherine Mary Stewart's character to the think tank with them. They ask her a bunch of questions. She, at this point, has no idea that they're up to no good, but eventually she figures out that they're going to utilize her sister, Robert Belcher's character, if he ever shows back up from San Diego, um, as guinea pigs to use their blood. There are two children. They look like maybe they're like 8 and 10 years old, a boy and a girl. not related to each other. The girl is Asian, the boy is white, and they're going to be kind of rendered brain dead and their blood utilized. So just to show how willing these people at the think tank are to put their lives before other people, they're going to like utilize children in this manner. So before Mary Warnoff offs herself because she realizes that she's dying. Um, she runs into Robert Beltran's character, who shows back up. Um, she pretended to kill Kelly Maroney's character by injecting her, but she really just injected her with something to knock her out. So before killing herself, she had written down all the information that Robert Beltran would need, where the facility was, what they needed to do, what the plans were to go to the think tank and rescue Catherine Mary Stewart's character. So this, enters the last portion of the film where Kelly Maroney and Robert Beltran head to the facility. In the meantime, Catherine Mary Stewart has figured out a way to kind of get out of their clutches. She's still trapped in the facility, but she's kind of freed herself. She happens upon a scene where they're about to cause these two children to become brain dead, so they could utilize them in their experiments, and she rescues them. And just as she's rescuing them, her sister and her beau show up, and they rescue her, and ultimately they destroy the think tank, and they make their way back to Los Angeles. So now they're a group of five: the two sisters, Catherine Mary Stewart's character, Kelly Maroney's character, Robert Beltran's character, and Catherine Mary Stewart and Robert Beltran character are a couple now. So Kelly Maroney's kind of the third wheel, and there's these two children. So Catherine Mary Stewart and Robert Beltran have become kind of like a little family. They have the two kids, and the two of them are all lovey-dovey. And it's the end of the movie, and Kelly Maroney is on one side of the street, and the rest of them are on the other side of the street. And she's asking them why they're not crossing over to her side, and they're like, "Well, the light is red." And she's like, "What does it matter? There's no cars in the world." And basically, their answer is, it's our job to take care of the world. We have to repopulate the world, and one of the things we have to learn to do is follow rules. And we, as a family, do not cross against red. And Kelly Maroney's character steps out into the street to be like, "Why? There's no cars here," and a car almost runs her down, and it turns out to be a single young man. And Kelly Maroney like looks up to the heavens and says, "Thank you," because she will no longer be a third wheel. She's a cute guy in a nice car, and she's going to get in that car, come hell or high water, and go have some fun with this guy and get away from her sister, at least for a little while. Her sister and her boyfriend and the two kids. And basically, the sister and the boyfriend are acting like parents, and they're like, "But you don't even know this guy." And so he introduces himself, and they say, "Well, okay, be home by midnight." And she goes off in the car, and that's where the film ends. There is a cute little aside. Early in the film, we do see Catherine Mary Stewart's character playing a video game, an arcade game, in the movie theater she works in, and she's obviously very good at it, and she has all the top 10 scores except for one, person number six, score number six. And all you can put in for your top score is three initials. So her three initials are in nine of the 10 slots, but the sixth position is occupied by somebody else's three initials. So, and you see what those three initials are, and ultimately, she plays the game enough to get his three initials. She beats his score. She gets his initials out of there. So at the end of the film, when Kelly Maroney's character is riding away with this young man who she just met, you get a quick shot of his license plate. And his license plate, he says his name out loud. And it's escaping me what it was, or even what the initials were. But you get a quick view of the license plate, and those three initials were the initials that were in the game. So it kind of comes full circle. The person who was in the game, whose score pissed off Catherine Mary Stewart at the beginning of the film, is the person who's driving the car that has her sister in it, to drive off. And so, for this kind of movie, a happy ending. The world has come to an end, but they've all found contentment and happiness. So, one of my favorite movies from the 1980s. Very entertaining, some lighthearted stuff, some horror elements, very good acting all the way around. And the heart of the movie is certainly the relationship between the sisters, Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney. Truly bring the idea that these are sisters to life, even though they don't really physically look anything alike. They really sell the idea of caring for each other. So, very entertaining film from 1984, Night of the Comet. I'm going to grade this as I normally do. I do it from an A to F, like if we were back in grade school, and I give this movie an A plus. What it lacks in budget and maybe some special effects, it makes up for in its performances and its writing, and the fact that it's just an overall fun film. And it also, I remember the 80s. I'm old enough to remember the 80s, and it kind of gives me a feeling of nostalgia. So I give the movie an A plus, really enjoyable. Um, if you see this video and you've seen the movie, please comment below and let me know what your thoughts on the film are. If you come across the film and you enjoyed, I'm sorry, not the film, if you come across the video and you've enjoyed it, give us a like, give us a subscribe as we're trying to grow the channel. So thank you once again for joining me at the late night double feature picture show. And until next time, be good.